Okay, another cooking video down the pipe here. This is a 13-pound chunk of Wagyu beef brisket. I've already trimmed it up. Why? Because I wasn't thinking when I started trimming it about doing a cooking video with it. But what I did was I've trimmed the bulk of the fat off. Not all of it on both sides. I'm leaving about 1/4 of an inch where it was a 1/2 inch or thicker. So I leave enough on there to keep it nice and moist so that it doesn't dry out. And you get that nice rich fat running down through when you put it on the smoker. So we're going to smoke this tomorrow. But first thing we want to do is put a good dry rub on it. Now you can make your own. You can buy store-bought. There's a whole bunch of rubs out there. I happen to like this Adams Texas style smoked brisket rub.
No sponsorship.
It's got good stuff in it. Salt, spices, including mustard and celery and paprika and garlic, onion, all kinds of good stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this rub on it. I'm going to let it sit on here overnight, and I'll put it in the refrigerator. Want a good healthy layer of it. You don't want to get crazy, but you want enough. You're going to have to get your hands a little dirty because you don't want it falling off when you turn it over. So now you get to see the other side of this little puppy. Oh my goodness. See, I left plenty of fat on this side. Got about 1/4 of an inch on here. You don't want to go crazy and trim your brisket so that it's just lean, because that will dry it out. You don't want that at all. My wife loves it when I do this kind of stuff because I make a mess. That was sarcasm. And my son in the background giggling at his daddy. Okay. Pat this all in good. Alright, now what we'll do is we'll put this in a pan and cover it and put it in the refrigerator. And then in the morning, about 8 o'clock, I'll fire up the smoker and we'll get it in. And this is barely going to fit inside my smoker. That's how long. Good looking piece of brisket. Okay, so next morning, I've uncovered it. I'm going to put more rub on it. Just because you want a nice, generous coating. I'm going to leave this set out uncovered no more than an hour, but for a little bit until I get the smoker up to temperature, and we'll go put it in the smoker after that. And like before, you want to make sure that you set this in. That's why it's called a rub, because you rub the meat. Get this all in nice, and I'll flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Okay, got to prepare the smoker. I don't need all these grates in here. You hear pellets being poured into the hopper in the back. So I'm going to take most of these out. No point in having to clean them afterwards. So, a very long progress. So, we're going to leave this rack in the middle. And I've got some water. I'm pouring into my drip pan. This actually serves two purposes. One, it's a drip pan. And two, it provides moisture in here as it heats up. So now we can close the door, fire it up, and we'll be ready to go. All right, just put the brisket in. You can hear it firing up. I set it to 225. That's the top temperature. The bottom temperature is what the cooker is now. Probe temperature shows what the meat is. I want to get that to 165 to 170. Every 2 hours I'll come out and we'll spritz this with apple juice. Okay, about every 2 hours you want to spritz the brisket. So I've got my bottle of apple juice and I'm just going to spray this down nice. Well, you can't see what I'm doing. Good job, Billy. Just give it a nice spritz with the apple juice and then close it back up. Another 2 hours, we do it again. She's looking good though. Okay, so I just took it out of the smoker and I'm wrapping it in foil. It's at 172 degrees. You want to do this when it's between 170 and 165 and 170. So we're going to wrap this with foil and then I'll put it back in the smoker. Okay, got her in. And now we wait for the temperature on the inside. I want to wait till the internal temperature. Let me get away from the glare. Right now it's at 172. We want the internal temperature to hit 190. Okay, we reached 190 degrees internal temperature. Now I'm going to take it out. I'm going to put it in this here pan. And we're going to take it in the house. And I'm going to let it rest before we start carving. Okay, you want to let your brisket set a good 45 minutes before you do anything with it. This brisket you want it to rest. In other words, just like cooking any meat, you want it to rest. But you want your brisket to rest a good 45 minutes before you start to try to cut into it. And this is what the goodness looks like. Don't that look yummy? Nice, it's still steaming. It's been resting for about an hour. Remember, the internal temperature got to 190, which is where you want it. I smoked it for 6 hours and 40 minutes before I put it in the foil. And then I cooked it at 225 for another 2 hours to bring it to temperature. I smoked it until the internal temperature hit 170, then I put it in foil. So I'm going to move over to here and start carving it up. But before I do that, the one difference that I've noticed between my pellet smoker and my wood-fired smoker is I don't get the same kind of bark on my pellet smoker as I do from a wood-fired smoke. Now, what's bark, Billy? Bark is just like bark on a tree. It's that exterior part of the tree. Well, the bark on a brisket is the exterior part of the brisket, this right here. And you see, it's not very dark. It's kind of brown. In my wood-fired smoker, I get a nice 1/8" bark all the way around, and it's so when you cut the thinner ends of it off, or the thinner pieces, we here in Texas and some other places refer to that as the burnt ends. Those are actually some of the yummiest part of the brisket as far as I'm concerned. So that's the only drawback that my pellet smoker has over my wood-fired smoker. And then I don't get the same kind of bark. The flavor is just as good. It's just as moist. It's just as tender. You just don't get that bark. Okay, now give me a minute to set up over on the cutting board and stay off of the microphone stand, Billy. Give me a minute to get over to the cutting board and I'll start carving this beast up. Now, you noticed I separated the cap and the bottom piece. A lot of people don't do that. I like to do that. I know I'm going to catch thunder for it from some of the purists, but I like to separate that cap because sometimes there's a big chunk of fat in the middle of it, as there was on this one. And you want to make sure that when you cut this and carve it, that you carve it against the grain. This grain and this beef is running this way. So, because it's running this way, I'm going to carve it this way. And then you get a nice carve. Cutting fast again. Oh, look at that. Just look at that. Now this would be considered a burnt end, even though there's nothing burnt about it. So, let's see if it's any good. What do you say? Oh. Oh my goodness. Wow. Moist, juicy, tender. The word succulent comes to mind. It's just absolutely phenomenal. It's some good brisket. So, what do you have with your brisket? Good southern style mint, mustard based potato salad, baked beans, and homemade cowboy biscuits. Yum, yum.